So Minu is going to kick it off with the first part of the exercise, and that will lead us into the conversation, and then we're going to come back to the final part of the exercise. So that's a little bit of the overview. I don't want to give away too much because we, as we say in design thinking, trust the process. So that's what we will do. So yeah, Minu, if you will.
Thanks, Pam. Yeah, of course. Yeah, so indeed, like she said, normally we start with discussing the topic of the day, but today we will do that after the exercise. So we sort of cut the exercise in two. We will do the first part first, then we will have a conversation about circular business models and circular models with Connor, and then we will do the second part of the exercise. So today we want to talk about circular models and about gift giving, because of course we are in this Christmas spirit. And Christmas, of course, it's fun and it's time you can spend with family. But if we don't, like, it's a magical time. But if we're not careful, it can also be a very wasteful time. A lot of attention is given to like giving gifts and putting gifts under the Christmas tree and everything. But often those gifts are bought without a lot of thought, and especially without a lot of thought to what those gifts do, or what kind of negative impact they have on the environment. So of course, there are multiple ways you can go about this and make it more sustainable and more circular. So you can of course look at circular models and actually buy circular gifts. That is one side of it. On the other side, you can also pay more attention to what are you giving, why are you giving, who are you giving to, and who really is that person. What does that person want? What does that person need? Giving a gift is a very personal experience. And if you really give a lot of thought to it, you might end up with something that is maybe experience focused, or something that you make yourself, or anything like that. It doesn't always have to be just something that you buy at the store, which is often what is happening nowadays. And actually IDEO, an innovation agency, they came up with something called the gift giving experience. And the gift giving experience gives you, within 1.5 hour, understanding of what human-centered design or design thinking, the process really is about. So it gives you an idea of what it is. So like I said, it's a 1.5 hour process that we won't go completely into today, but I took little parts of it that I wanted to dive into, because a very important element of gift giving, and actually also of sustainability and building a sustainable future, is empathy. And also human-centered design is a lot around empathy. So really exploring the why and the needs and the implications of gift giving or of anything in actual life. So I want to take this empathy part first and go into breakout rooms where we're going to interview each other in couples and get to know the other first. So do a quick introduction of like 3 minutes both sides, get to know the other person. And then we will dive into what is the life of the other person about, like what are his hobbies, what are his passions. A lot of this information can already help you figuring out what will be a suitable gift for this person. And if we want to dive even a little bit deeper and really look into like the desires and the feelings and emotions and everything. Because gift giving, yes, of course, you can look into someone's passions and you can look into someone's hobbies, and that might lead to wonderful gift ideas. But you can dive even deeper, and really maybe a certain type of music makes someone happy, or maybe snow makes someone happy, or like little things in life that spark an interest or that spark a certain emotion. Try to figure those out and take this information and these insights and try to come up with a gift for this other person, like a gift idea. And this gift idea will be the base for the next part of the session, where we're going to discuss circular models with Connor and like circular economy. Because then during that discussion, you can think of ways of how you can make this gift idea a more circular gift, into a more circular experience. So what I want to do first now is put everyone into breakout rooms. Actually want to make Of couples, only you are with two people in one screen, so that might become a bit more difficult. Like that normally doesn't happen. But you'll just do it in a set of three. That works. So we are
Do
with.
people have any questions before we start?
Yes.
Just checking.
Yeah, I have one remark to make. So because of privacy and also because of kindness, you would normally people say that this session is recording in the beginning, and I didn't hear anything, and I saw that this recording sign on the top left corner of the window.
You are absolutely correct, Curious. That is completely our mistake. I am very sorry about that. We are indeed recording it, and we post it on our website. So if you are not comfortable with being on the video, then it's okay to turn off your camera. Just saying that to everyone. Thank you, Curious, for that reminder.
So Dennis is asking why we're talking about gift giving. Yes, of course. We're talking about gift giving because this is our Christmas special, and this is what a lot of people at this time of the year are thinking about, and they're busy with. And giving gifts, and especially giving gifts without thought, can be very wasteful. And that's why we wanted to connect this session, to gift giving and to the to circular models, because they go hand in hand in many ways. I hope that explains why we're doing what we're doing.
And yeah, I'm also curious about the question in itself. Like as Minu said, IDEO is one of the design thinking. Well, they coined the term design thinking basically, and so for one, gift giving is for Christmas, but it also gives you an insight into design thinking and in understanding customer needs. So if we are going to redesign for a circular economy, it's also very important to understand what people really want and what people really need. So we can redesign the products and the services in a better way by making use of ultimately business models, circular models. But yes, does that make sense, Dennis? Maybe Connor wants to add something to that as well. Feel free to come off mic.
It seems like a real stretch to me, but sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I think just as a quick anecdote from my side, having worked with many brands in-house and now consulting, is we as consumers consume so much stuff for ourselves, but particularly at this time of year, we consume and buy so much stuff because we feel this social pressure to give people stuff. And it's like social pressure, like, oh, everyone needs to have a full Christmas tree underneath. And it's like, okay, how can we frame that? So maybe not take that away, but do it in a way that is healthy for our planet and can still inspire and give that love and thought and care. But how can we do that in a way that doesn't harm our planet? So this first step is really just to get us thinking in our traditional gifting ways. And then later on in the session, we're going to work on how we can reframe that. And it's really going to be blue sky thinking, interactive, and I can throw loads of ideas down. And I'm so guilty of this because I'm doing last minute shopping just before this, and I'll probably be doing some afterwards. And I've got a big family, so I've got a lot of experience in this area as well.
Thank you, Connor. Okay, Minu, you ready?
Yes.
Is everyone ready for it?
So if you want, you can also just go to the Miro board if you forget what we have been thinking about. There is the circular gift giving experience is on the board where you can see like which topics you can explore in the next 10 minutes. I would say take 5 minutes per person to dive into like who you are. Like explore the other person's life, explore the other person's dreams and needs, and then come up with a gift idea, and we will take that to start discussing circularity. So then I'll start throwing everyone into breakout rooms right now, and I'll see you back here in 10 minutes. See you in a bit.
Ik wil niet in een breakout hoor.
Oh.
Kun je mij eruit gooien?
Nee.
Oké. Damn it.
Nee.
Ik ben zo blij mee. Alright.
Dat lukt niet.
Ja, oké, dan moet ik maar, hè?
Ja, ja. Oh, wacht. Deze moet ik even naar move to 4.
Zit er iemand op mij te wachten? Jazeker.
Ja, we gaan...
Oké,
Ja.
fijn.
Ja. Oh, waarom lukt het? Waarom zit deze persoon nou alleen?
In a situation where
Hey.
hello.
Sorry, just dropping in for a bit. Continue.
Yeah, okay. So now I'm looking at a wind turbine where you would put it in a situation if it has a lot of extreme loading. So for example, storms or water spouts or any such extreme events.
Sure.
So it's my, you can say, job to find out what would happen under those circumstances.
Okay. Wow, that sounds fascinating. Coming from Scotland, I know what extreme wind and storms can be like. Therefore, I know that, you know, these wind turbines need to be designed in a way ready for that, and not just for the last 5 years worth of storms, thinking ahead of what storms will be like in 100 years.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Precisely.
What ideally would you be getting for Christmas if you were getting a gift this year? What do you feel you need? Something connected to music or?
It's chocolates, yeah, for me.
Chocolate.
I'm in Belgium, so it doesn't get better than that.
Fantastic. Love it.
Yes, homemade chocolates from Belgium that is where it's at.
Amazing. Okay, taking notes.
You guys seem to be on it. I'm gonna go to the next room. See you later.
Perfect.
Yeah, see you.
Cheers. Bye.
I can't hear anything.
Sorry, you couldn't hear me, I think. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Ah, okay. I'm so sorry. I think I got muted because I was in a breakout session. So what I was saying is that we are all into breakout sessions at the moment. The others, they will come back into the main session in 6 minutes or something.
No worries. So my invitation said this was at 7:30 tonight.
It is at 7:30, but it's at 7:30 CET.
Okay, yes. So when I signed up, it got a little confusing. So I'm so sorry for the miscommunication on joining late.
Where are you calling in?
I'm calling from New York, so it's a little different. Yeah, so I'm calling from New York.
We actually, I think we might have to communicate the time zones, because we always expected it would be more like a Dutch or European thing, and it's
Okay.
expanded, so we have people calling in from all over the world.
Yeah, I found you guys on Eventbrite, and I searched for New York, and the product line I work with is sustainable and environmentally friendly. It's built from recycled materials, so I thought this was going to be a great session to join in on.
Wow, okay, that's interesting that you find that. Like, I think more people had this issue, because actually now people are starting to drop in the more than like, so that is a bit odd. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so sorry about that. Yeah, it happens. I used to live out in Europe too, which is funny because I'm familiar with other meetings being international.
Absolutely not your fault, because actually Eventbrite, I mean, you pay for Eventbrite because they take care of these kind of logistic things.
Yeah.
So and it often happens that people join in like the meeting, like the sustainability sessions, even up until like 12 hours before, or even 12 hours after the session, which is...
Oh, that's weird. After, I don't understand. But it's interesting because I have everything forwarded to my work calendar, and this automatically went to Eastern Standard Time, even though I guess that's why. How many people are joined in right now? Is it more than 4 people? Because I only see 4.
We are here for now, and then the rest are in breakout sessions at the moment. I will stop the breakout sessions in a couple of minutes. So, because what we've been doing, I was actually just explaining, but I was muted. So, we start the sustainability session with an interview with one of our the guest speakers, who is an expert in a certain topic around sustainability. And today it will be honor around circular economy and circular models. But today we decided to do a creative exercise first, because I mean, it's 22nd of December, so a lot of people around the world will be like very busy buying gifts and everything like that. And Christmas is awesome, of course, but we should try to as well keep it like environmentally friendly. And a lot of like what's happening around the world right now is presents being bought for no particular reason, just because people have to give a gift. And they don't, like, they're busy, so not a lot of thought goes into what they're giving, or if it's like environmentally friendly or useful. So what we want to do right now is first explore within couples, if that's what they're doing right now, who the other person is, what they want in life, what they need, what their desires are, what their dreams are, what their hobbies are, and everything.
Oh, I wish.
Right?
Yeah.
Like really dive down like into the empathy, and figure out, okay, what would be an awesome gift for this person. And then the second part of the session, we will try to think of ways of like, how can we make this gift more circular.
Okay.
So yeah, that's what they're all doing right now. I will send them a message that we will be back in here. I think a lot of people got there's something definitely went wrong with the time, because
And I know you guys have more events up in January and other conversations, which I think would be great to continue.
Yes. So we have one, we do this sustainability session every fourth Tuesday of the month. We have been doing this for 7 months now. We will continue next year as well. And actually the one in January is going to be pretty interesting. It's not going to be like we normally do, as we invite one guest speaker and have a discussion with them and do a creative exercise. But we will start with a panel discussion around purpose-driven teams and how things like the Clifford strengths or working with colors, like personality colors, and how you can like really build a team that is purpose-driven and focused on like accelerating the sustainability transition. Because
cool.
We do this together, and it works a lot better if people are intrinsically motivated. Like how you
sure.
Yeah.
I don't want to take away from anybody else who would like to talk, but do you guys have callers in from the US and New York, or is this mostly a European conference?
No, actually, sometimes we have people from the US as well. I think today it's a lot in India. Yeah, it's a lot from India. But no, mostly it's all of it. Only never Australia. But the rest of the world we got covered mainly. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Are you a sustainable designer yourself, an eco designer? My name's Andrew.
Hi Andrew.
My camera's not on, that's why
We are actually innovation process facilitators. So we're not per se designers ourselves. No, we really facilitate the innovation process and take people through the various stages of innovation, all the way from exploring and problem framing to prototyping. But if something really has to be designed, like the technical side of it, we will ask experts.
So you're an organization that could help someone get some sort of funding for their projects, that kind of thing?
No, what we do is like when a company or an organization wants to become more sustainable, but they don't really know how, we take them through this process and we start exploring with them how their processes, products or services can be more sustainable, or how they can tackle certain challenges that they face and come up with sustainable solutions. So it's really more focused on the innovation side of it, not percent funding.
May I ask a question? If someone had invented a process in edible bioplastics where they can put logos and patterns at the production process, where could that person seek funding? Because I'm finding in the UK, unless I go to UK Plastics, their funding's in hundreds of thousands of pounds kind of funding. It's not something that it's me, it's done this, that I can access as an individual. But for me to develop my idea, this concept I have of an edible bioplastic that can be used around like KFC. So one of the prototypes I have is a KFC logo, and it's rocket and lettuce flavored. So it's a complement to the food, the wrapping. So if I want to find funding to help me kind of, not big steps, but small steps, progress this kind of concept and idea that I've found, how can I go about that? I'm a trained eco designer, and I did this, I came up with this process in my MA at Middlesex Uni. Then COVID hit, and then I've not been able to kind of move it, but I'm very keen to find access to funding that could help me develop this. You know, I've got prototypes I can send and all sorts of them to show them, PDFs of work and stuff like that. I'm just hitting brick walls, finding funding or organizations that could help me progress this, because I do think it's got real legs. Yeah, the project itself, basically. That's why I'm kind of linking up to programs or events like this to see if there's any people out there that could point me in directions. Sorry to take up your time.
To be totally honest, I don't really know. I don't know that much about funding. Mostly when I want to explore these kind of things, I look into crowdfunding at the beginning. But to really, what really would be the right platform for this? Actually, I'm not sure. Maybe one of the other participants knows a bit more about this. See, Connor is on the
yeah, if you drop me a link on LinkedIn, then I can send you a link to various sustainable funding grants Some are UK, some are EU funded. Depends really on what your solution is and which grant bodies might be.
I can send you a PDF. It's called, I've got a brand name for it, but it says it's infancy stage. And so I need to make connections with maybe biochemists as well that might be able to help me. I found research in my MA that indicates that hydrogels, which is what this material is that I've made, a hydrogel plastic, is that hydrogels can change color if food is going bad. So the whole idea was just that you'd have this cling film that you wrap your food, or it's part of the packaging, and it's in your fridge, and it changes color as the food deteriorates, and then so you know when to eat the food and things and stuff like that.
Amazing.
So this is the kind of funding that I'm trying to seek. So it's a smart material that communicates to you visually through color change.
Yeah, drop me a link on LinkedIn, and then I'll message you a couple places to check out for funding in that space, or some people you should check out.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Sorry to take up so much time.
That's okay, Andrew. Perfect. I dropped Connor's LinkedIn address in the chat, so you can find him there and drop him a message. So I'm super curious to know what kind of gifts you came up with in the breakout sessions. I think we had a little bit of a time zone mix-up as well. So a lot of people just dropped in while you were all in the breakout sessions. So we have some new faces here. But if someone wants to unmute and hop on the mic and tell us a bit about what you came up with and what you discussed, that would be awesome. So, yes.
Yeah, I can go first.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we had a small conversation with Connor. It was very good, very insightful. So the gift I came up, he guided me to come up with, is an inspirational trip to a rainforest. So they do these trips to a rainforest where the only carbon expenditure in terms of sustainability that you do is by the travel. Apart from that, everything else is done by hand. You cook yourself, you stay under your own tent, and it's basically living like it was 2000 BC instead of 2020 AD. So it's quite fun.
Wow, that is an awesome gift.
Yeah, I can't wait for it.
Yeah, I mean, if I had loved ones who would give me that, where do I sign? Did someone come up with a gift that is more tangible, like a product, instead of an experience? Pamela, what did you come up with in the breakout session?
So I'm happy to share. So yeah, I spoke to Curious and to Para, and we had an interesting conversation with Para, who is an aeronautical engineer in India, which is amazing. And then he also builds rockets for fun at home. So that's a really cool hobby. And what we figured out is that in order to build them, he uses a 3D printer that uses plastics. So I saw an immediate circular opportunity there to not use virgin plastics for that, but to use a shredder, or to gift him a shredder that he can start reusing and recycling his own plastic that he can then feed into the 3D printer. So I was already taking that to the next level there. But yeah, so that was it was a really cool hobby. We had a bit of a difficult conversation because his mic wasn't working, so we were chatting in the chat all the time. But yeah.
Cool. That is definitely a very specific gift that you probably won't come up with if you're just like, ooh, what I'm gonna buy today, and I'm gonna walk into the city and buy a plastic shredder to build rockets. No, that doesn't happen often. But that's awesome.
No, not really. Not really.
But
he also wants a dog. So
he also wants a dog.
Yeah.
Okay. That's probably a bit easier. Okay. Does someone else wants to share what they came up with?
I can go next. So I was speaking to Louisa, and I gather that she's into sustainability herself, and she doesn't like having any tangible gifts. and she's rather fond of having experiences. And my expertise, not expertise, but my hobby is to design board games. So I've come up, and she likes paddle surfing. So I've come up with an idea where I'm going to create like a coloring book with all the lake maps, where wherever she paddle surfs, she can just color those routes and make like a memory book for herself.
Wow,
Amazing.
that is pretty impressive in 10 minutes. That is an amazing idea indeed. And I love how personal it is as well. Cool. Thanks for
I really
sharing.
like the idea. I really like it.
Already made someone completely happy. Yeah, that is amazing about like how much happier you can make someone with a gift if you actually put some thought in it and like try to explore what that person actually wants instead of just buying something for the sake of buying. Yeah, that is awesome. Okay, thanks for sharing. At the end, we will maybe explore a couple of gifts more and see how we can make them circular. For now, I actually want to move on to the discussion interview part of the day because we have our guest speaker on, Connor Hill, who is actually an expert in circularity and he's a circular consultant. So we want to start a discussion about circular models and about like what circularity means to you and all of this. And for everyone else, if you have a question or comment, suggestion or anything, please just either drop them in the chat or hop on the mic and just join in. We want to keep it a bit casual today, and especially because, I mean, circularity and sustainability, there are such vast topics, so they're often quite interesting to just have open flowing discussions about. And if you want to know something or don't understand a certain term, please let us know. So yeah, Connor, happy to have you on board today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course, of course. So we actually met a couple months ago through a community focused on sustainability. And I think we chatted a couple times before through this community. And we discussed your circular models and everything, and I explored a little bit what you do. And you actually studied sustainability in 2006. So since then you've worked with quite some interesting companies and very interesting projects. So actually, my first question is going to be quite basic. Namely, what does sustainability mean to you? And why did you end up going for circular models and the circular economy, as sustainability is an extremely vast topic? You could have gone into 1,000 other directions.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, quite a big question for quite a simple question as well. So, yeah, sustainability for me in its most simplest sense means like fair to the planet, fair to people. So, I mean, you can take that in so many different degrees, but for me, that's the simplest form of it. And fairness to people and planet is really thinking about, we're just borrowing this time, this moment we all have from all the future generations. So anything we do now is going to have a lasting impact, or it's going to create an opportunity in the future. So my sort of mindset is always to be optimistic in this space. And I guess where I see a lot of design today, unfortunately, we're designing waste for another generation or another like another place in the world to deal with. So this whole design thinking has been around profit, short-termism. So we need to switch that design thinking from, you know, making these things out of cheap products to how do we make things that last a long time? How can we design things out of the waste we've already created? How do we design things that, you know, at the end of their very, very long life can be recycled into something else of a high value, not downcycled in something else? So that whole logic and really thinking about why we design the way we do today was what shifted me from sustainability where I see it today to circular economy. So I see a lot of brands and people seeing sustainability just as swapping in one or two materials and really marketing that one material as a whole product. But really, if we want to get circular, we need to think about every material in that product, how it's constructed, how it's pulled together, and most importantly, the life cycle of it. So it's not the brand, you know, as soon as they've sold it, they don't care. It's how do you create that community, that network, that relationship that lasts way longer than that time that they click checkout and open the box. It actually lasts a lifetime, that relationship. So that's, for me, the most important difference between sustainability, where most people think today, around swapping in just one or two materials, to getting to this circular space.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Like sustainability is indeed not as simple as that. Everything is, like we talked about the other session as well, everything is connected.
Sure.
There is connectedness in how we set up systems, and also how we think about like consuming things and distributing things, but as well indeed into like, yeah, setting up circular models. It can't just stop at any step. You really have to sort of keep going and connect one thing to the other. So what I always find very interesting is like a lot of companies focus, like you said, on the materials of it. Or if you really want to set up circular models, you will at some point need the buy-in of the consumers as well, because they have to return the product, or they have to change, like have a mindset shift in any way, because circularity it cannot become circular without them also buying in and helping out in making this circular. So what would you say that is the challenge there, like in this buy-in process of the consumer?
Sure. So today, I think we don't really have an emotional connection to the things we buy a lot of the time. We just buy them because we maybe want them. Maybe we've seen some marketing. So we buy because of want rather than buy because of need. So we need to think about how we value the things we have today. So if we all quickly think about, you know, if the house is burning down, what's that one item of clothing you would take? And actually, when you actually just pause to think about that for a second, you're like, wow, okay, like so much of it I don't care about, but there is that one piece. And that one piece you might think about, why is that valuable? And it might not be because the monetary value of it, it's the sentimental value, or it's the experience you've had in it. So for me, a huge part of how do we shift to circular is how do we start to revalue the things we have and really care for them and look after them and invest in repairing them rather than buying new all the time. So I think that's the first bit around consumers. But then we also need to think about how the brands can set up an infrastructure and the digital aspects of those products to make it easy to repair them, to resell them on various platforms, either peer-to-peer or even back to the brand. And that sort of digitalization of what you own will take away a lot of friction around, you know, today, you know, if you have to post something on eBay or something, you know, the hassle to take a photo, to clean it, to make it look presentable, to post it, interaction with consumers, like that's a lot of hassle for a lot of people. So what we see is these platforms getting more and more streamlined. So it's more and more effortless for consumers to give back their old things and get monetary value back. So that exchange of value as well as physical goods will be key if we really want to make circular economy grow and more frictionless in the coming years.
Absolutely, yeah. Like we always mention that, and I think this steps into it as well, only in a slightly other way. We always mention that consumers shouldn't be professors in sustainability. Like it should be made as simple as possible to make sustainable choices, to buy into circular models, to participate in this like working towards a sustainable future. Yeah. So the same with like models like this, it should be as simple as possible, because I mean they're all living their life and they're busy on a day-to-day. Like we can't make it super hard. Like every item you buy, you have to bring back to a certain location. I mean that would just simply too overwhelming. So yeah, you're absolutely right that finding simple ways of like returning it is absolutely crucial indeed.
Yeah, and it's also like that the element of like incentivization. So, you know, the reason so many things go to landfill, unfortunately, is because there isn't an incentive for people to change their behavior. You know, they're not penalized for sending things to landfill. You know, nobody's checking their waste when they put, you know, electrical batteries in there, which should never go to landfill because it's like terrible for the environment if that goes into the environment. But like nobody's penalizing them. So it's sort of like, how do we incentivize that change as well? And a lot of people don't know the impact things have. So you can't really blame them either. You know, so few people have been to where their products are made. So it's hard for them to understand the impact they have by their current behaviors. So I see like a role in brands as well there to incentivize them of, you know, the amount of water, energy, carbon that go into things. You know, I just like, if you like for, you know, certain formal wear, if you buy that one piece and only wear it once, which unfortunately is the majority of times, like the impact of that versus renting is like huge. It's something like 300, what was it? I even wrote it down earlier on. It's the equivalent of doing 342 miles. I don't know what the kilometers is. I guess 500 kilometers in your car. Like, so that's so much carbon. So it really, it's like, how do we change these business models which work for people's budget, which are efficient and easy for them to bolt into, but still let them, you know, look good and feel good in that moment. So lots of different elements, and every product, every brand is going to have to come up with the model that's right for them and them consumers, their consumers. So the Patagonia model is fantastic for them, but it doesn't mean it's right for another brand. And that's really the space we're in just now, of piloting loads of experimental programs. And through that, these brands and consumers are going to find the right ones and start to scale them up over the next couple of years.
What do you think? Because it's I totally agree, and like a lot of the things that you're saying as well, everything is interconnected. We're part of a bigger system. A lot of the questions that people often have is like, well, it's not the responsibility of our consumers. It's hard for consumers to know everything. So what's the role of governments? What's the role of businesses? And it's all this interconnected system. But indeed, I agree with you that you're seeing a lot of brands right now, a lot of companies that are really jumping on board with the circular economy. Why do you think that's happening right now?
Well, one, the consumer is a lot more educated. Like the majority of us will probably have a Netflix account or something similar. So the access to information in a really easy way to digest is there. You know, you don't need to read a university thesis or report to work out about the impacts of fashion. It's well documented. So I think that's changed. And therefore that means that consumers expect more of brands, and they're demanding them through things like fashion revolution, more transparency. So we see that. And brands are seeing it as an opportunity from that, sort of creating that network, that system where they're constantly engaging with consumers. So they buy the Burberry trench coat. They know that, you know, you've got it, Pamela. We know after 2 years, you maybe need it dry cleaned or some process. You maybe need it repaired. So we're contacting you. We're offering that as a free lifetime service. We also know that, you know, 5 years down the line, maybe there's a younger person in the community that wants that Burberry trench coat, that wants it secondhand because it's affordable, and they know that you've got it, Pamela. So it's giving you the nudge of saying, here, do you want to give this to someone in your community for this reduced price? So brands are starting to see that that engagement and value connected to their consumers is just getting richer and richer. And that's where you see certain high street labels struggle because they don't have that strong brand connection with the consumers. You know, you're just treating white label products, churning them through. And that's where I think brands have a fantastic opportunity. And that's where they're, you know, why they're wanting to get behind circular economy. And that, I think circular economy can mean so many things. So in my business, we break it down into 7 different areas. And I don't see anyone really doing all of them, every part at the moment. Everyone's sort of looking at repair or rental or subscription or making with waste. So today, I think every brand is trying to work out where they want to start and what's the right thing for them. But yeah, legislation's coming as well. So business based in Europe, we have the Circular Economy Action Plan. In France, they have tough regulation around what happens with products if they're not sold. You can't destroy them or they can't go to landfill anymore. So brands are having to come up with second life solutions, whether that be repurposing them into new materials or downcycling them into new products. So you see a lot of innovation in this space as well. So I see it coming from consumers' expectations, legislations, and then brands just truly seeing that this is the opportunity for the future to get closer to their existing consumers.
Yeah, thanks for that. So I'm actually quite curious. You mentioned you have seven things that you use. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? Because
Sure.
you tell me if that's appropriate to open up our Miro again and to look at that value hill with those models, or not just yet. You give me a cue when that's
Yeah.
when that's gonna
Well,
be
even
helpful.
looking at the first, like maybe 2 or 3, it's looking at design. So how can you make products out of waste?
Mm-hmm.
Or how can you make them out of regenerative materials? So there's plenty of plastic in the world. There's plenty of many other materials out there that are currently waste and going to landfill. So how can we create products made from those rather than extracting something new? So design would be the first one. The second area would be around manufacturing. So how can you create these products without creating more waste in the supply chain? So within the fashion space, you know, we buy a product from that store, but there's actually 30% of waste created in that supply chain, just around the way that pattern has been designed, errors, quality, all these things. So with waste in the supply chain, consumers don't even know about it. So how can you design that product in a way that has very little waste at the start? How do you make it in a way that you're not gluing different materials together and therefore it's difficult to recycle in the future? So those are 2. And then the third one would be looking at how do you actually sell the product to someone or a service. So is it subscription? Is it rental? Is it traditional sales in that sort of area? So those would be the 3 that I would, it's probably a good starting point.
Yeah. So Manu has summoned, for those who are on the Miro board, has summoned you to a model that we like to use, which is the value hill. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but there are many frameworks, many models, and essentially they talk about the same thing. I mean, there are a few models or design strategies that you can use. So at the left of the hill, you see the design part that Connor was already talking about. In traditional design, we extract something and then we make something of it. So it goes from extraction, manufacturing, assembly to retail. How do you sell it? And then at the top of the hill, this is already the circular value hill. There's a happy consumer who's using the product. And then at the right side, actually, it's normally is when it decreases in value. But there are also a ton of opportunities on the value recovery side, as what Connor already mentioned. How can you design something that's essentially waste or considered waste right now? So how do we move from that take, make, waste model to take, make, and reuse and recycle and remanufacture? So in the bottom, you see on the left side, circular design. So that's product design. Using circular materials, as Connor was already saying, designing for long life, because right now, this is another thing that's insane in our capitalist system, is that we design for obsolescence. So we design for things to be short cyclical and intended to break down after a few years. So you buy into a new product. So you have to buy a new one. A great example of a company that's trying to make this different is Fairphone, for instance. So they don't want you to buy a new phone every 1 or 2 years. They want you to just take out, it's modular. So they want you to switch. If the battery is dead, you can buy just the battery. If there's a certain part of your phone that's not working anymore, you replace just that part. So there are all these creative ideas on how you can design for a longer life. And then of course, a lot of it's in the use phase. Like you said, Connor, like product as a service, the Lisa jeans from Mud Jeans. I love these guys. They are amazing. Extending the life, sharing, buying it back, repairing, and then the value recovery part. But I'm I'm hijacking Connor's floor time here.
No,
What would you like? Can you elaborate and share some cool examples of favorite clients, favorite projects that you've done?
Yeah, sure. So I'm trying to think of like some of the ones. So I think from a rental side of things, there is On Loan and Her. They're like 2 of the better known ones at the moment, particularly based in the UK for women's fashion. So one is actually, or both are actually looking at this model now, doing a pivot. It's, you have your premium designers clothing, and they have this inventory of that, which they pull from other brands. They don't actually own the inventory, they bring it in from other brands. And it allows any of us to then go on there and buy, you know, a Prada, Gucci dress, use it for a weekend, a longer period of time, and give it back to them for around 10% of what the actual retail price is. So as a consumer, you know, you get to wear it for that weekend or that longer, even your holiday event, something like that. You get all that newness, that wow, that access to this amazing brand, that amazing product, but you don't have to empty your wallet to get it. So I see that model coming in, but where they're doing a more recent pivot is helping us consumers to also be part of that from a revenue point of view. So if I've got a Burberry trench coat, I've got whatever it might be, a Y3 jacket, I could actually also put my premium products in my wardrobe on there, and I could actually rent those out to other people as well. So that encourages, it monetizes my wardrobe. It encourages me to buy good quality products that can do multiple rental cycles. So I think for me, that's one of the ones which I think is amazing. And it's increasingly how I think about products when I buy them as well. So I just bought this a roof tent for the car. I don't know if anyone's seen these before, but it's sort of like your stepping stone to getting a caravan or a camper van. And it just goes on top of your normal car. And in there you have a double bed, and it pops up into a nice big tent. Perfect for these domestic holidays we all have to do now. But part of that, and I bought it secondhand, was also thinking that I will only use this a certain amount of times and weekends each year. But anyone else that has a roof rack could rent this off me. And if I can rent it out 10 times, it'll already pay back the cost of me buying it initially. So I really, when I look at it like new products, whether it be clothing or whatever else, it's an investment because I really love it and will use it. And is there going to be a resale value at the ultimate end? Is it repairable? All these sort of elements is going through that decision process. Whereas me, like Guilty, go back, 5-10 years ago, I would be following the fashion trends and I'd be buying it outright. I'd be buying a phone every 2 years, definitely. But all of those things are really like changing in terms of my decision making at that point of purchase. And that's a real blend of, seeing if I can buy something secondhand, first of all, could I rent it? And if I can't do either of those, then I'm looking to buy it new. But it has to be like the best, from the best brand, quality materials, ideally got good traceability of where they've got them from, good reviews in terms of how long they last. And then ideally, it would have some sort of re-commerce or take-back program as well. So that there's a way that it can be sent back to that brand to be given a second life, or I'm confident that I would be able to resell it. So it's really a blend of many of these through different examples. And I wouldn't say there's necessarily one leader for fashion, one leader for electronics. Grover, if you're based in Netherlands, they just launched there, but they're, mostly in Germany. So if you want to rent a projector for the World Cup, you can do that, the world's best projector, and you don't have to spend £1,000 on it. So that's amazing. Or if you're going on a holiday to the Amazon, like the gift I was given earlier, like I can have the best camera just for that trip. I can take my photos and I don't have to invest in the lens of the camera. So I see so many models like that starting. And I think that will only continue, but also the big brands that aren't in that space now are just going to continue to get disrupted and eroded by these challenger startups.
We actually got a super interesting question that it sort of taps into the big brands. So yeah. Daniela is asking, how companies targeting the lower class implement sustainable, how can companies targeting the lower class implement sustainable methods whilst keeping the prices low? For example, like IKEA and Zara, they're big brands, big companies, but they have quite low, like they're not the Burberry jackets.
Sure.
Yeah. So yeah, how can they do this while still keeping those prices low indeed?
Yeah, so it was pretty well documented. IKEA just started their bring back instead of Black Friday, so that got fantastic media coverage. And And basically, if you've bought something IKEA in the past, you can now bring it back to them. They will give you a price for that, so a monetary value. They will repair it, fix it in some way. If they can't repair it or fix it, and that's creating local jobs, which is really important, then it's recycled. So the wood is then turned into new particle board, etc. But those products that they can repair, they're now creating a secondary market for those to make the IKEA products, which can be premium or entry level. They're now then creating this repaired entry point. So that makes IKEA even more accessible to more people. And you see different brands doing that as well. So that's a really successful model. The great thing there is they didn't just do it as a PR stunt. They did that in many of their stores across Europe. And they've committed to also, taking all the learnings from that, because they want to have a permanent model like that by this time next year, which I think is fantastic. Just proving that it's not a PR stunt. It's something they're really committed to. For other areas, I think for clothing, I think there's an opportunity for those mid-priced brands to really show that if someone wants to buy a white t-shirt for £5 or something like that, great, they can do that. But I think the brands at that mid-price point who sell their white t-shirt at £15 or £20, if they've got quality testing standards, that means it lasts 3 times as long as the £5 t-shirt, then that's something they need to be marketing to their consumers. And I always remember going into an IKEA years and years ago, they had that sort of S-shaped chair, and they had the pressure going on it repeatedly, just showing like the quality of it. Well, brands should be like showing that all the time, and really, like, if they make their products durable quality to last a long time, show that to the consumer in a video way on Instagram or whatever it might be, because then people will start investing in them. And that £5 t-shirt that is misshaped and bobbly and all these things after a short time. So I guess my question or my point there is, people on low incomes, yes, they need to buy what they need to buy, but they can also be looking at places like Depop and these other places to be getting those better quality brands at a lower price point as well. But if we can educate them and consumers, like the full spectrum, everyone, that buying quality and durable products is more sustainable and it is also economical because they'll last longer, then that's really a role of our brands, I think, including myself, to educate people to know how to buy quality and durable things, so that they get good return, rather than being forced to buy fast fashion at low cost, which has obvious impacts.
Thank you.
It's actually quite interesting. I think you mentioned this already also when you wrote your introduction to us. You said that your aunt also said that it's always said that it's not innovation. There are not new things. They're just going back to the old-fashioned way. And quite a couple of the things you just mentioned, they're like taking back materials or going for quality. That have been things that we have been doing actually already in the past, like going for quality or bringing back your bottles of your glass bottles to the milkman, or selling back your motor to the mechanical shop. That has all been that was common, and we kind of lost our touch with that. That went out of the window at some point when we chose that opting for fast fashion or for plastics was the more efficient choice. So I think your auntie is right there. And how do you think we can move back to these certain models? Try to get that back into society, that actually we are living on a finite planet, and that those maybe old-fashioned seeming models did make a lot of sense.
Sure. Yeah, so my granny is my granny, and she always says, Connor, you're not doing anything innovative at all. It really brings me down to ground level. It said you're just doing what we did in the war and all the years after. So yeah, absolutely. The milkman is the perfect example. Why did we all switch to plastic when there was a fantastic circular model there beforehand? So I think what we see today is, people like Amazon Fresh, all these sort of models, like we are getting food delivery coming back. We are getting more predictable about what we're going to be ordering as well. So that has opportunities. So Loop is pretty well known now from TerraCycle. around packaging, which is reusable. And, you know, even in, so I'm currently in Scotland, and, you know, in this, even the smallest of towns, they've now got plastic-free shops. And those are the things you'd think, okay, you know, when I lived in Germany, they were common, but now it's getting down to the really, really small towns, which is really impressive that the market is there and people are willing to go that extra effort to go to these shops, to take their containers, buy their flour, buy their nuts, whatever it might be, their olive oil, their soaps, and buy it by weight, rather than by buying it in these predetermined packaging, which is very, you know, wasteful. So I do see that changing. I think it will still take time. You know, just now I'm living in an apartment in Edinburgh, and, you know, I go outside and I see the recycling bin and the general one, and there's so many things in the general bin that you can see straight away, like huge cardboard boxes, and like the recycling is right beside it. So I see like this huge bit of education is still missing. And I see that as an opportunity for everyone. Like it's consumers, so everyone should be upskilling themselves, but how do we make that easy? Okay, Netflix is doing a good job, but, you know, there's people like Kogo can tell you the impact that you're having linked to your banking. So that's a great way to understand what impact you have. And it really changed my mindset when I now see the footprint of everything I do, which is quite scary, but it's empowering. So education from an individual point of view, government, so local authorities also need to think about how they change behaviors, and also the taxation of companies. So we have this thing called extended producer responsibility, which is a tax that brands need to pay for the packaging they're placing on the market. And that tax is essentially funding the recycling of those products. But that questionably needs to be a lot higher because it's not really funding the amount of innovation we need. So I would say there's a couple different areas there which will help the transition, but essentially it's not nearly fast enough.
Well, yes, and so there's a few questions coming up, and we have about 15 minutes left on the clock. So just gonna move a little bit to that. What also came to mind for me is, like you said, that we have to change so many areas. And going back to our grandmothers, like the way that they did it, I saw in the chat as well. If you want to be sustainable, ask what your grandmother did, from Louisa there. But yeah, there's another thing. I think it's a trend now, and it's growing. That it's about the purpose economy. That we're making the shift from welfare, from growing our focus on growth and our focus on income and GDP, on focusing to well-being. And that's a big shift in our mindset that we also need to make. And I feel that we're definitely in the revolution phase to get there. So maybe some closing words for you, and then Anzella had a question, so we can give Anzella the floor after that, and for a final question there. Connor?
Yeah, sorry. So closing word just around how well.
Any thoughts on the shift to well-being, the focus away from GDP and focusing more towards well-being?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Currently, we've all got more time to look at where our food comes from. And it's not only where our food comes from, it's what our food potentially has eaten beforehand or how it was grown. So whether it be the chemicals that are put on the fields, and now knowing how many cancers are related to that. So if you don't wash your fruit when you get it home, definitely start washing it. So I've learned a lot in the last just couple of weeks around that, of how bad some of that chemistry is that goes on our food and is still on our food when we take it home. So that is really, you know, connecting to me around my well-being, and, you know, the buildup of that. If I eat 2 apples a day and it's got that chemical on it and I've not washed it off for years, you know, there's a buildup there, which is quite scary. So that is one thing that shocked me quite recently. But then also I love, you know, Greenpeace are fantastic at what they do and how they can really get people thinking, okay, eating certain, you know, chicken has its impacts. That's well documented. And people think that's bad, but then now when they're thinking, wow, like those chickens aren't eating the grass around them, they're housed inside all their lives, and what they're eating comes from potentially, you know, areas which used to be rainforest. So I think this level of knowledge of everyone, they're like, wow, okay, what I'm putting inside my body is not just an apple and it's healthy, it's got bad chemicals on it. I need to really think about the sourcing of that. But then people are like, just their heads exploding of like, wow, okay, when I buy one thing, the impact it has, not in the supply chain immediately, but threefold up from that. So I think people are just, you know, in this moment when they have more time to think about where stuff comes from, they really see that they can make a difference with everything they pay for. So not necessarily specifically on well-being, but just that connectedness to the planet.
Yeah. So we're moving. It's I love this one model that says we're moving from ego to eco as well. We used to be at the top of the food chain, if you will. The humans are here to dominate the planet, whereas now we're seeing more and more that we're interconnected and we're part of nature, and we really need to adopt that mindset once again, because ultimately anything we do in sustainability, I love to bust that myth. It's not to save the planet, it's to save humanity, because we cannot live on an inhabitable planet, basically. But thanks. Thank you so much, Connor. Just the final question from Anzella. Please, you want to come off mic and...
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to ask one question about the IKEA, because I think like the idea behind IKEA is really unsustainable, because like people are moving from I don't know, from one city to another city, and they just like buy some cheap stuff from IKEA, and then they just throw it away, because why to take it and to move all this stuff to another city when you like move yeah. And so I mean, like I think that like the idea behind the IKEA is unsustainable, and now everywhere we can see this billboards with advertisement like sustainability cannot be expensive. And I mean, like maybe I'm a little bit confused about this, but yeah, I wanted to ask this question: how IKEA is first of all an unsustainable business project, or can turn to sustainable one. And yeah, I think like the products which they have, they're not really long lasting. Yes, thank you.
Sure. So from my point of view, every brand in the world is on a journey around sustainability, and most brands were really at the very start. So I massively credit any brand that's doing something rather than doing nothing, and also being vocal around what they're doing, because a lot of brands are, you know, waiting for a silver bullet before they say or do anything. So I really like give credit to brands that are at least doing something. I think where we see people like IKEA, they're experimenting as well. And the reason they're experimenting is because there isn't a solution out there yet. And that is where we need to be. And I think we need to like support these brands and say, fantastic for going after it, investing in these models and seeing what happens. But also, you know, sustainability being expensive. I think like so far, like when I lived in Germany and now Scotland, like Frigo, Gumtree, I can furnish a whole house for free now. So yes, you can go to IKEA and buy it new, or you can use Frigo, Gumtree, all these other things. So I think there's it's how you want to, it depends on what your materialism is. Like if you want to buy an expensive sofa, which you're going to have your full life and pass it down to the next generation, then that's a really good mindset to have. Hopefully you're not moving too far and don't have to move it around so much. But I think every product is case by case. Every brand, every person is case by case. And at this stage, it's all about experimentation. If we can use sustainable cotton, so BCI cotton is like one step up. If we can use organic cotton, then that's even better. If we can use recycled cotton in our products and furniture, even better. And it's like same with, you know, woods. Make sure it's always FSC at least, or is it recycled wood? So when you make these furniture products or other things, at least what's gone into it is better than maybe what it was before. Again, then the glues that they use. So a lot of companies will not use certain glues because of the VOCs, which are bad to breathe in. So when you have certain brands that commit to not using certain glues and paints, again, it makes our houses healthier as well. Because if you have a house full of products with all these glues and you just freshly painted, it's actually a really toxic environment to be in. So you have so many different layers and areas within sustainability that no brand is perfect. No brand will be perfect in the next little while, but it's about trial and error and just building on those learnings all the time and being transparent with your consumers on where you are. Does that help to answer your question and from my point of view?
Yes, thank you. You helped a lot. Yeah, but just maybe a small one. But because every time I'm in the IKEA, I see so many people like buying. Yeah, like I mean, like they need to change the whole idea of IKEA, like not to buy all the time. If you, I don't know, like. It is so cheap to buy some things in IKEA. So if you move, that's why that was my point. It's better to throw away the old stuff and then in the next city to buy again. Go to IKEA and buy again. It's nice atmosphere. I don't know, like, and there are so many people I think who do this, and like they maybe need to reorganize the whole idea behind, just not to to buy it so often.
Yeah, and I think it's how we can, so if that individual is wanting newness all the time, it's the same like what we see within clothing. So people want newness, but what we saw in the past is newness means new to the world, like made with virgin materials and new to them so that they can feel good about it. But we see this huge shift to newness doesn't mean new to the world anymore. New just means new to you. So that can be through rental, it can be buying it secondhand, which allows people to have that newness in their fashion, their wardrobe, their apartment, but it doesn't mean that more oil's been taken out the ground, more trees have been chopped down, because you're able to circle more things around, get better efficiency, better utility out of things. So I see that shift coming as well. And there's quite a lot of rental models for fashion, for furniture, for people that are living in their apartments for anything from 1 month to 1 year, that you can rent everything, just like your apartment. And you see many models like that coming through. There's quite a few in the UK and quite a few in Scandinavia. So I see that disruption coming, and IKEA also have a VC that's working in that area as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
IKEA has many positives to it. It's a product that's based on flat pack technology. It's a product that by the nature of flat pack allows recyclability or repairability by replacing one leg with another leg and so forth like that. It works on modulated furniture, which is quite a sustainable or eco way of looking at things as well. So I do understand where IKEA with its materials in terms of the composite of it, but in terms of its concept and what it can do, in the flat pack, it has a quite important role to play in design. The idea of recyclability, repairability, design for disassembling the product and things like that. So these kind of concepts, they shouldn't just be pushed to the side just because the materials they choose to use or the system they engage with in consumerism that trying to generate you to buy new all the time. IKEA has some very good, just in its basic model as it is now, some really good environmental or eco-design kind of concepts to it. It's just unfortunate the material use is the problem, or the choice selection, should we say.
Yeah. Absolutely, Andrew. And the thing is as well, I mean, I don't think you've mentioned it in this session, but we often talk about something that is called the sustainability ladder. Whereas indeed what Connor also already mentioned is like you can't expect brands to go completely sustainable now or even in the next couple of years and go to perfectionism when it comes to this. It's really just sort of a ladder that they have to climb, hopefully rather fast and slow. And at some points they will do great environmental things in certain areas, and they have to still develop and become more sustainable in other areas, a great example for this, for example, is like H&M. They've been, I think, called the most sustainable fashion brand. Like you can go into a long discussion about this, but for the last couple of years, for the big fashion brands, and that is because at some points they're actually doing a pretty good job, whereas others, indeed, they still have this fast fashion model where they just sort of push people to consume. So certain elements they're doing right, and other elements they are still, actually doing a pretty shitty job. And this is the same with IKEA, and this is similar with a lot of other companies. So it really is a ladder where at some point one department will probably raise the other department one step higher on the ladder, and then slowly they will climb this. And I hope the same goes for IKEA. Actually, Curious is asking if he can ask a question. I don't know if you already. Yeah, it's 1 minute ago. So yeah, go ahead.
Sure, sorry. Yeah, I earlier I heard about repairing what we have, and one important concern here is about, like, I don't know if you have mentioned it, but the time that people spend, effort, which is actually directly corresponds to money, in my opinion. So, and what happens in many cases is this system is designed in such a way, especially in the developed countries, that the human resource is more expensive, a lot more than materials. And at that moment, okay, how should I decide when to repair something and when to throw away and buy a new thing? I can also give you an example. My dishwasher has broken recently, and they charged me for €60 for just detecting what the problem is, which I don't think it costs that much. And for the repair, they charge for, let's say, in total around €90. And this in total, the total amount of money corresponds to more or less if I buy a new thing. And the same goes for even if I don't get an expert person spending money on it, then I spend my own money and I'm an expert on something else, then my hours also goes for money. That's how I look at my life also. And I prefer, let's say, not spend money for repairing something sometimes, but I just want to buy a new thing because this is much cheaper from my own sustainability part. So how do you decide on this?
Yeah, I can ask, like, from my personal level, then I'm always trying to repair it myself if I can, by buying the spare parts. So generally, if you have the confirmation email from when you bought it, years ago, potentially, there'll be some information on there around the product number, if it's not still on there, where you can then source the spare part. So I quite enjoy trying to do it myself. I learn new skills. Obviously, you don't always have time to do that. And obviously, if I can't do it, then it's, getting an expert in to do it. And ideally, the brand that you've brought it from the start has designed it in a way so it's easy to repair. But you're absolutely right, Curious, that today we make things so that they're not easy to repair. So that's something that we need to change, and we need to start designing so things are repairable. They're disassemblable, as Andrew was saying as well, so that it's easy and more cost efficient to swap in one or two pieces, rather than that sort of knock-on effect of people just being frustrated and just buying new instead. So I think that comes down to the initial design and the importance at that stage. And that's really my, I'm trying to fix my oven at the moment. I've bought the wrong size part 2 times just because there isn't the specs on it. So I also get frustrated, but that just encourages me more to then find the designers of these companies to empower them and inspire them with these examples that if we change, then we buy, and we create lifelong brand consumers rather than one-time buyers. So that's really my consumer and brand point of view on that.
Okay, thank you. Can I make a comment? Do we have time for this? So I definitely see what you say. On the other hand, when I look at the big picture, the approach that you're taking is not optimized in the following sense. So I am not a dishwasher repairer, I don't know what your expertise are. I think you're a consultant and you're also not an oven repairer, right? And
No,
the total
definitely
amount
not.
of money, the total amount of time that you would spend for that one is actually you can invest on doing, helping the society by doing your consultancy more than try to repair that thing. So this is overall is not sustainable. My proposal would be in this case is actually the following. So I prefer that we actually simply not do this by ourselves, but we need to somehow have some kind of community. And in the actually Netherlands, there are some communities like that, like there are repair shops where volunteers work. These people understand about this. They can solve these problems much faster, but we need to, let's say, also provide our service somehow free available to the other people so that actually we optimize the overall process. So maybe they can repair oven much faster, but you also need to provide some kind of service to them for free so that they can also solve their problems in a more sustainable and optimized way.
Sure. So the reason I try myself is because sometimes I like being offline because it just allows you to use your hands and be creative and connect.
Yes, definitely right.
So that's why I do it. I agree it takes time. But the one thing I definitely suggest checking out is barter pay. So barter pay is exactly that. So I sell an hour or a day's worth of consulting to someone and they also barter something else. And it might not be a one-to-one barter, but that's exactly how you can do that. And it's also being looked at from a taxation point of view as well. So they're doing it in Canada at the moment and the government's really behind it, that the exchange of value doesn't need to be monetary anymore. So I encourage you to look that up, barter pay. Yeah, they're looking to come to Europe pretty soon. And that's exactly in that space, how businesses and individuals can trade through skills and knowledge rather than, traditional money means.
Perfect, thank you. This is actually quite something that I was looking for because I was using this thing also for my personal life. So I want to learn Dutch, for example, improve my Dutch a little bit better. You can pay and buy courses, but this was not the very optimal option for me. I said I am providing service of, let's say, what they call in Dutch bijles, which is giving the private lessons on other topics that people can improve, so we can exchange a service. And this was exactly what I was looking for. Thank you.
No problem.
Cool, thank you. Thank you for all the questions. We actually went a bit over time. We wanted to do the second part of the exercise, but the conversation got a bit too interesting. We actually have this quite frequently, and it's okay. So I just hope that everyone got a bit inspired and learned today about as well circular models, but also how you can rethink, reconsider the gifts you are giving, and maybe even make the gift you came up with at the beginning of the session more circular. I don't want to dive into the second half of the exercise because we have been on it for over 1.5 hours right now, and I mean, at some point everyone just kind of has to go walk around for a bit to refocus, of course. So I want to thank Connor a lot for all your input, and I want to thank everyone else for the questions and the comments. I hope everyone will join us for the next session. We actually already have quite an interesting one scheduled. We are going to talk about purpose and how purpose-driven teams can help accelerate the sustainable transition, as well how you can build purpose-driven teams and how strengths and everything like certain matching certain personalities can help you build effective teams, because effective teams can help us accelerate the sustainable transition faster. And I think that is where I want to end it for today, and want to wish everyone Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. And thanks again, Connor. I don't know if you want to say a last couple of words or maybe a tip to end this year on the most circular way possible.
Yeah, sure. So I was actually just speaking with one of our close friends, the rental company, and because there's so many, this is really more UK dependent, but so many men, and I know this is a sexist comment, maybe doing the late shopping over the next day or two, and now can't even get to the shops because they're in tier 4 in the UK. So if you're looking for something, buy vouchers. And the rental company that I mentioned before is her. and you can buy vouchers for that, and that's something you can give to anyone, and that means that they can rent that amazing top, dress, whatever it could be, for that occasion that might when we can eventually do events again. So I would say that, and then also don't wrap presents, wrap them in newspaper, don't buy new ribbons and cards, be creative, create something at home out of something you've already got, for your gifting this year, if it's a physical thing.
Absolutely, thank you. Yeah, vouchers and experiences are indeed a great way to go. Like what I was thinking, what I'm going to do for, it's sort of vouchers, but it's vouchers for carbon emission offset with ecology. I dropped the link in the chat, and that's also an awesome gift. And actually, what I will do this year, I'm gonna give my sister an interrailing ticket. So both motivating people to travel by train and give an experience rather than a material thing. So yes, vouchers or experiences, or at least something personal, it's definitely a great way to go. And I love your wrapping something else than fancy wrapping paper comment. Because indeed, there are so many things you can wrap your stuff in that are just already lying around your house and will never be used. So thanks for that. Pamela, you want to say some last words before we hop off?
Well, I can share my gift suggestion. One of my friends, who is one of the busiest bees that I know, I actually gave her a beehive that is going to be put in a developing country. That's going to help the family. They have a veggie patch and they grow vegetables, and they have fruit trees everywhere, and the bees are going to help with pollination, and of course they can sell the honey as well. So that's another gift that keeps on giving, if you will. And I love that a busy bee is going to be gifting a beehive. That was a fun analogy for me. So that's another way of doing that. I think it's with Oxfam. And I think you can also gift a goat or something else that's going to help build the farm in a developing country. Another beautiful gift. Yeah, thank you all very much. And I wish you very happy holidays. And of course, a happy new year, especially in Russia, where it's a bigger party. And thank you all for joining. We'll be back in January. We already said everything, so I have nothing to add.
That was easy very much. Perfect. Yes. Thanks again, Connor, for joining, and thanks everyone for participating, for being so active, and have so many critical questions in the chat. That always makes a session way more interesting if the participants are super engaged. So thanks a lot for that, especially like at this time of the year. I mean, you went and learned something today instead of sitting on the couch drinking glue wine. So awesome. Yeah, thumbs up for that, and happy holidays.